Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is one of those super fun ones where it's in a collaboration with several people. So it's called the Flippin Frenzy and it's from Sonnet's membership group, and there's like over 20 of us doing this. So what we do is we draw names, we go to our stashes, we find like 5 different random items, and then we send it to that person that we drew and they have to upcycle those items. So this is the holiday edition. So let me show you what Kathy Gores sent me from Waste Not Upcycled. Let me flip you around here. So we have a Come Let Us Be Joyful music sheet and an interesting garden tool. Love the color of this. And we have some little houses. That would be fun to make a little like snow scene. Butterflies, which is going to be interesting because they hibernate in the winter. And we have this spoon type thing here, a beautiful wooden bowl. I love wooden bowls. And an older bottle, a little shelf, and this really cool can with a handle on it. That's going to be fun to upcycle. She gave me some greenery to go with that. And then this is one of those sewing thread holders, I think. This one kind of had me stumped for a while, and I finally came up with an idea for it. So you'll have to see what we do there. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first project, I picked out that beautiful wooden bowl, and it felt a little greasy to me, so I'm going to take my Fusion's odorless solvent and really clean it really well. I cleaned it with alcohol before this, and I'm going to do it with the solvent, and I can notice that on my napkin there was some tannins coming through. So we're going to paint the back side of the bowl the manor green. I love this super dark hunter green color. Very, very pretty and rich. More of a different tone than the normal brighter greens for Christmas, but I'm going to do that. And then I am actually clear coating the inside of the bowl first. And I'm going to do one good coat of this, and then we are going to use a transfer on the inside. So this is just a decor bowl only. And this is the Transfer Winter Botanist from this year's release of IOD. It has this gorgeous tree in there with some writing in the background. So I'm going to use my little tool and place that in there. I made sure that it was completely dry before doing this part. Otherwise, it would not stick. So, and then I'm just going to pull that plastic off and burnish it in. And then I'm going to use that top coat again to seal the tree in. And this is done. This is such an easy, simple project. I didn't even really sand the bowl at all. I liked all the marred scarring in there, and I think the color turns out beautiful with that top coat on there. It's just a really pretty brown. And so here I'm going to just go over it with one more coat and let it dry, and you can put stuff in there like pine cones, or if you want to see the tree, you can mount it on a shelf. The second project I picked was this spoon thing. And I'm going to go ahead and use some of the beadboard that Sonnet gave us in our maker's box, and I'm going to do 2 coats of this DIY beadboard, and then I'm going to go ahead and seal it. Before that, I'm going to distress it with just a baby wipe, just to kind of bring back some of that silver underneath to make it look not so brand new. And then we'll go ahead and seal it. And the transfer I chose for this was smaller than the actual spoon part, so I'm going to go ahead and blend out the edges, and that's actually what I taught at Sonnet's retreat. It was kind of fun. So you'll see me kind of using some different colors in the actual transfer itself to blend it out. For the handle, I went in with some Fort York red, and I did just a really light coat. I did not push that paint down. I wanted it to actually look distressed.
So I did a distressing technique without having to paint so much and without having to use any baby wipes. It just, you do a really light coat over the top and you can see some of that wood is still shining through, and it looked perfect. So sometimes you can distress without having to use sandpaper or a wipe. And so it's from Santa's Hollow. These little Santas are so gorgeous. They're out in the woods, they're walking around. This little guy had a pretty bright red coat, and so that's why I chose him to match that handle. And you can see that he does not go to the edges. So apparently I did not push record when I was blending, but you can see here I'm just adding some of the limbs back on the tree after I had blended in some of those colors. And this is kind of a fun part too. You can actually make your own little background if you want. But I thought it was just a little plain, just like that. So we're going to add a couple pieces of ribbon, and I did add some antiquing glaze to the handle because it was a very bright white. So after that, it all looked cohesive and super cute. This is, I think, one of my favorite ones of the whole bunch. So the third project, she had this little bag of teeny tiny little houses made out of MDF, and they were kind of falling apart. So what I did was just take my X-Acto knife and cut those pieces off, and I sandpapered those down. And then I ended up painting all of them, I believe, parchment white from Fusion. And then what I did was I took my little stamps from the apothecary set in IOD, and I had 6 little houses, and I thought, what could I make, what saying could I put on this to make it more holiday? And so the first thing that came to my mind was ho ho ho. So these little houses, there's like one big, one small of each size. And so it was kind of like perfect. So what I did, I think I ended up putting 3 coats of this parchment on there to make sure everything was covered. But I got my tomato ink from IOD, which is a red, and I used that little apothecary stamp and put ho 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 on those, and they turned out super cute because you can like stagger them in your vignettes. You can, you know, have them all lined up. There's lots of little things that you can do to put these little guys in, and I think these are definitely going to be ones that I keep for sure. So these next 2 projects I actually combined, and it's going to involve this tin with this handle, and this tin was pretty rusty, so I'm going to go in and put a coat of my Fusion tough coat on there in matte, just to seal in that rust and make sure that it's not falling apart. And then I'm going to go in with the handle and use bayberry. Now the handle was already green and it was super chippy and stuff and looked cute, but the greens, there was like several different green colors going on, so I wanted to make it a little bit more cohesive, and so I picked the green that I like the best out of it, which is bayberry. Went in and did one full coat on this, and then I did take a baby wipe and wiped back some of the areas that were already chipped off, because I did like that look. So once that was done, that part, I went ahead and with that music sheet she gave me, I tore off the top of the music, and we're going to decoupage this onto the front. And then, of course, that sheet was pretty bright, so I did use my antique and glaze to tone that part down. And initially I was going to put just some florals, Christmas florals in here, Christmas pick. And then I thought, how in the world am I going to use that rake thing? So what I did was I took that little gardening rake and I ended up tearing off the handle part of it. And then I went ahead and I used, I believe it was cast iron or ash infusion, but you'll see. And then I painted that, and I used the Dixie Belle products, the patina paint in bronze and the green and blue patina spray to make it really rusty. So this is, I did like the blue color, don't get me wrong, but for Christmas time, I was like, that's not going to fit my palette. So I went ahead and I made it rusty crusty looking, because then I can use this all year long, because the backside of the tin I did not put anything on, so technically I could maybe turn it to the side, I don't know, or do a different tin. So anyway, my sprayer wasn't working on my green one, so what I do is I just take my brush and I stick it in there, and then I just tap it up and down where I want that rusty color to come through. And the blue spray is crazy. You'll see in a minute. When I spray that, it just goes, it's like super jet spray. You can see it just gets everywhere all over my pad there. And then you spray it when it's wet, and then you dry it, and you get it to the consistency you want it. So I'm going to end up putting those two together, and you'll see that at the end. So this one was a little ornament that came in Sonnet's Maker's Box, and Kathy sent me this cool bottle, and so I'm going to go ahead and paint that. I believe it was cardinal red, and I added a little bit different red, sorry I don't remember, of the DIY, mixed it together, and that's where I got my red. But I'm going to go ahead and paint the top black, and I did end up taking that white plastic part off of the top of the bottle, because I do want to stick florals and stuff inside there, so it doesn't need to be on there. And then with that ornament, what I'm going to do is I painted the backside red. I'm going to use another one of those little Santas in the woods, and I'm going to put him on the front part of that little ornament and hang it off of the bottle. And I do go in with my Tough Coat Matte Sealer, because DIY, you always want to seal your paint. It is a clay-based paint, so anytime you don't seal it, if it gets wet, that water can reactivate that paint. So you'll want to make sure to seal that. So here's that transfer from IOD, and this time I picked another Santa in the woods, but he's a little bit more toned down on his jacket. And this fit the entire ornament, so I loved that. So I'm just going to use my little tool and get it on there. And then the extras, after I take that off, I used my X-Acto knife, and kind of like when you're trimming the crust off of a pie before you bake it with your knife, I did that technique here. Just trimmed off the excess there and sealed it with my Tough Coat Matte from Fusion. And then I did use a little black piece of velvet ribbon to hang from that. So this last project is the one that stumped me the most. It's that little thread hanger for your sewing threads. I found a frame, a wooden frame, and I'm going to go ahead and use my brad nailer to tack that into place. And this is from Redesign. It's one of their molds that it's like a bendable mold, kind of like a resin, I guess. It's supposed to bend without using heat, but honestly, I found it was kind of tough. So I'm cutting it all up, and I did use heat to bend it. Um, and then I used my Titebond Quick and Thick to place it into position. And then after it dried, I'm going to go in with my Fusion Parchment. I did 2 coats of this. And then this is the only one that's not holiday because it's going in my daughter's room. This is going to be, I walked into her room and her necklaces and her bracelets are just laying everywhere. So I thought this would make a cute little jewelry holder for her. So I'm going to go in with the Shipwrecked finishing wax from DIY. It's a beautiful teal color. And she's got some teals in her bedroom. And I'm going to do just the roses on that and wipe that back. And I think this is absolutely gorgeous, you guys. So let me know what you guys think, and make sure to watch the rest of our premieres. We've got over 20 people in this challenge, and we're all loving the flipping frenzies because we never know what we're going to get from each other. And sometimes we get a good challenge, and that's good. It's good to think outside the box and be challenged once in a while. Kathy did a great job. She gave me some really fun projects to work on and a couple pieces that were like, not sure if I'm going to use that. I did not get to the shelving unit she sent me, and she did send me some greenery, but it was a little bright. I would have had to paint it, so I just threw in my own. So again, let me know, guys, what you think, and please be sure to continue to watch the others in this challenge. It is so much fun. We all in the membership group love to just get something to drink, get a bowl of popcorn, and sit down and watch each other's because it's so fun. So take care, you guys, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye.